أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته أعظم الله أجرنا وأجركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. We are discussing the fundamental articles of faith. Now, I have requested, and inshallah will request once again, that we do congregate on Monday in order to finish off certain points that require further discussion. So, for example, on the finality of the Prophet and the issue that we raised, there is certain discussion that needs to be had. Now we come to that article that our Sunni brothers deem as an article. But within the folds of the 12ers and the Shias, it's not seen as an article, yet it is believed in and impacts us to the core. The way we have discussed these articles of faith have been that these articles of faith and theology is supposed to liberate humanity at large and allow them to acquire the function of the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all these articles of faith have to generate motion in the positive manner. They have to be liberating. They have to assist us towards the growth of our humanity. They have to assist us in actualizing the full potential with which God has created us. Otherwise, it defeats the whole purpose. The article that our Sunni brothers actually uphold as an article, and we believe in it of sort, as an article which qualifies us as Muslims, is the belief in the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah's ability to decree. So predestination or decree and destiny, qada and qadar. Simply explained, qada is the eventual end towards which we are all going, and qadar is every step of it and how we get there. Now here, if not understood, this can be very defeatist. If understood, it can promote growth in the utmost sense. Now if you look at it this way, that Allah is all knowledgeable, Allah is all capable, then nothing escapes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some of the sort of fallacious notions that arrive in the mind, you have already heard it in the time of Bahlul, that somebody queried that how can Allah burn Iblis in fire? Yes? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself performs all actions. So how can we be held responsible for them? At that, Bahlul hit that person with a brick. When he complained, he said, Allah has hit you, not I. And he says, well, how did the brick hurt you when you are made of clay and the brick is made of clay? So in that fashion, we see that these are the notions that are plaguing the human community if not understood properly. And if understood accurately, they are actually promoters of growth. And we need to understand them very well. Because as opposed to empowering us, they instill a sense of defeat within us. Now if you look at the Indian caste system, you will often find justification for this caste system. There are the untouchables. And the untouchables are told that God has destined you to be in this way and you need to accept the fate that has been destined for you. And at that, these people at times become passive and agree to their fate, that this is what we are supposed to do. It's been destined for us from our God and there's nothing we can do about it. It's a very defeatist notion. In the same way, Bani Umayyah promoted this belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for you people to be poor and for us to be your lords. Or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined for Hussein to be killed in the way that he was killed. In which case, what people have done is they've maintained the status quo. The rulers have been rulers, and those who exploit have been those who exploit. Similarly, the Meccans used to do the same thing. They had very oppressive and exploitive social systems, but they gave it the color of theology, that this is what God has decided for you. And if you are devoted to God, then you need to accept this. So you can see this, that it's not only there in theology, but you and I are also operating in this defeatist understanding of the world. This is what Allah has destined for me. I can't do anything about it. Have you not often heard this being said by others or felt it within your own self? That if Allah has destined this, I need to accept it. It makes us passive, it makes us lethargic. It takes the activity away from us. And this is inconsistent with the khilafah, that is our designated position. Imagine humanity. Had it believed in this notion, it would not have evolved. We today want to defeat death altogether, don't we? We want to overpower death. And in certain time, humanity might be able to overpower death. At that point, then, death will be taken by choice. Because we will see that we need new individuals taking birth in order to bring that freshness into the world. But if we can, we will defy death altogether. This is our natural condition. The khilafah inside us was to overpower. The khilafah is the khilafah of Allah. Allah does not know death. His khalifa does not understand death at all. Had we been defeatist, we would not have found cure for the sicknesses and the ailments that we suffer. We did not believe in decree and destiny. What did we do? As khalifa of Allah, we overpowered it. When there was darkness, we did not resign to destiny. We took the reins of destiny in our own hands and we created light beyond darkness. Through the khilafah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are becoming God-like and we are overpowering destiny altogether. So there is no such destiny in the way that we have been made to understand. Destiny is in a very different sense and it operates very differently. You see, this defeatist attitude of destiny is what has kept the Muslim Ummah where it is. This is exactly what the faith communities have done before us, and we are doing the same thing, and we need to explain this somewhat. But in any case, when it comes to the actions of human beings, now we know for a fact that we can't breathe or sneeze without the consent of God. Now I'll then construct an argument for you, and then we want to break it afterwards. Did God know whatever is going to happen before it happens? The answer is yes. Can anything happen contrary to the way God knows it's going to happen? The answer is no. Otherwise we defy the knowledge of God. Can anything happen without the consent of God? No. So in other words, we are only playing out what God knows is going to happen. So here I ask, God, if you knew everything before it happened, then what was the point of saying I'm making a khalifa on the earth? You should have just told the angels, I'm going to play a movie for you. Just watch this nice movie and entertain yourself for the next 15, 20, 50,000 years that it's going to play for. Why say I'm making a khalifa? That is a false claim. Because you're not making a khalifa, you're putting certain cartoon characters that have already had their determined roles. They can't defy your knowledge and they can't act without your consent. What's the point of calling them khalifa and boasting over us? The angels should have said. But the angels understood that no, this is actually a real story that is going to be played out. And hence the angels said, contrary to your will, O God, they will cause corruption and bloodshed. They absolutely absolved God of corruption. Can you just recite salawat and come forward a little bit, please? The angels actually were acknowledging that this is a true story. They were saying to Allah, your Khalifa cannot in your name cause bloodshed nor cause corruption because it's inconsistent with you. but this one will do that contrary to your want. So immediately they're absolving God of corruption and of bloodshed. And they're saying this one will. That shows that this one, that the one you're giving the freedom of choice to, is going to do all these things, and you might end up disappointed. This is what Iblis says. Iblis says, Allah, the one that you have favored, this Adam. Now, I don't want to go into Iblis' story, yes? And I always get into trouble for saying this. Iblis is very dignified in the Quran. Even at the, I'm not saying it, read the Quran. Even at the end of the day, Iblis will say, I promised you, and I went against my promise. Allah promised you a truthful promise. I'm not shouting at you and screaming at you. Don't shout at me, don't scream at me. I just called you, you came running. This is our lot, the fire, bear it. And he's very dignified. He said, look, I belong in the fire, so do you. Don't scream at me, I won't scream at you. We are all wrong, we need to go there now. Yes? Iblis says to Allah that, you know, this one that you have favored, you will not find him grateful. How? When Allah chose to bestow so excessively upon Adam, Iblis said, Allah, I put a wager. This one will not be grateful for all the endowments that you've given to him. Had you given it to me, I would have truly been grateful, but this one is not going to be grateful. All of this shows that a real story was about to take place. Now, somebody goes to the Imam and he says, is it true that everything happens with the consent of God? He said, yes. He said, is it true that Allah knows everything? He said, yes. Then in that case, we are not responsible for what we are doing. In that case, the Imam said, the one who is a tyrant is the most oppressed person, because God makes him into a tyrant in this world and then burns him. And the one who is oppressed is the least eligible, because God makes him into an oppressed and then gives him paradise. Then they put it differently. Somebody said to the Imam, he said, does God force us to do things? He said, God is more just than that. He said, has God left it upon us to do everything? He said, God is more powerful than that. There is a path which is a middle path. You have choices. Your choices are limited. Nonetheless, you are responsible for your choices. I do not want to go into a philosophical debate here, but I've given these lectures in Birmingham, so please refer to them. 5 odd lectures and some in Canada, about 6, 7 seminars. Refer to them that explain these things. So you have limited choices. Your choices are limited by the fact that there are 7 billion of you, by the fact that you're stuck on an earth, by the fact that earth has its own nature. All of these things limit your choices. You can't fly in the air. Your choices are limited unless you have wings. And that's why you need to drink Red Bull. Do you have Red Bull here? Do you have it? Salawat. I need Red Bull right now, honestly. So he says you have choice and you're responsible for your choice. But your choices might be limited. However, what we need to understand is something beyond that. Is the system of God a fixed system, like the Jews said? When the Jews, in the time of the Prophet, when the Prophet came and the people were converting to Islam, and the Jews were talking about their miserable state that had prevailed upon them after the initial victories that they had in the time of Dawood and Sulaiman and after, they said that this is how a system is. It's a fixed system. God can't do anything about it. What does that mean? It means He has already destined it. Since He has already destined it, nothing can be done about it. He has destined failure for us, and even God can't change it. Can you see how it limits God? It's like domino effect. When you flick the first one, it's going to go right till the end. You can't do anything about it. This is what the Jews said. So they said in the Quran, and Quran narrates it, they said, Yadullah maghlula. The hand of Allah is tied. He has already destined it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala retorts, says, Ghullat aydihim. Both of their hands, their hands are tied. Bal yadahu mabsutatan. But Allah's hands are both open. He can do whatever He wishes. So therefore, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us is that this system is very much alive. It's not determined. It's determined and not determined. Now I have to add this point here. It's a delicate point before we go on to what is relevant to us in this talk. That our failure is in the way in which we think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We say, Allah knew what was going to happen before it happens. We say this, don't we? This statement is false. Do you know this? Because Allah, we maintain, is beyond time, don't we? If Allah is beyond time, the statement that Allah knew before it happened is false. We have to say Allah knows what is happening. That's the first thing. The second thing, again, is a delicate point. If you look at you, so yourself, and we look at ourselves, and we look at this world, we will see there is no such thing as past. There isn't any such thing as past. Past is a recollection of my present that has gone. We are always in the now, we are always in the present. You should see this. There has been no past. Go and bring me the past. Touch the past. Present me the past. You will not be able to. Even if you were to take a clip of mine from the past, yesterday's majlis, that majlis is in today and that has gone through time. Even if you write something on a paper from yesterday, it has begun to erode. You can't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not doing it. There is motion. Everything is in the now. There has been no yesterday in the way we understand. When you put a paper boat on a stream, it sails. You will always see it in the now, in its motion, always now. It will be your recollection of where it was that you call a past, but that past in the realist sense does not exist. In the most real sense, when phrased accurately, and I said there's limitation in the language, and that's what causes a lot of problem. Allah knows everything, and that's the right statement. And everything is in the absolute present, and everything is in the making, and everything is in the becoming, and anything can change. There is nothing that can't change. Everything is destined and everything is undestined. Amazing the system is. I am making my decisions now and Allah is destining now. God's divine destiny and my choice are one and the same thing. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يغير الله ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah will not change the state of a people until they change their own state, because it's happening right now. In that sense, nothing has been destined. That's why the Quran says, in tansurullah yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. If you assist Allah, Allah will assist you, because it's happening in the now. Destiny is in the making. That is the way to understand most accurately. This is what the Prophet of Allah did for the people of Mecca. He said, you are not destined for failure. You are your own failure, you are your own success. Salawat. You can change your state at any moment that you will. It is up to you. Take the reins of your destiny. And the way the Quran depicts this, if we can only read it accurately, is phenomenal. Hussein ibn Ali says, in Dua Arafah, O Lord, how may I be defeated when you are my overpowering God? To say that, O Lord, you can change destiny at every point. I will never feel defeated. I will be defiant in the face of destiny, with full belief that I can change it through you. And he said, Oh Lord, how may I be jubilant when you overpower me? What a beautiful balance he strikes. Now, if you read the Quran, it's phenomenal. The story that the Quran says of what is happening in terms of the khilafah of Allah on the face of this earth is amazing. We cannot even fathom it unless we open our hearts and our minds and go into it. Allah, Isa, I'll just get going to it with that story of Hazrat Isa salamullah alayh. Isa said, when there was a wedding in a place, he said, tomorrow there will be a funeral of the groom himself. They passed again the next day. The groom was alive. They said, Isa, you are the Spirit of God. You told us you do not predict things for us. You're a prophet. You have access to something that we do not have access to. You have ilmul ghaib. Why is that man still alive? Isa said, I'm baffled. I don't know. God has final say. They went to the house. Isa went to the bride. He said, what happened yesterday? She said that when everybody was busy in the preparations of wedding, there was a knock at the door. I hesitated because it wasn't befitting for me to answer the door. But I heard the plea of a hungry man. I opened the door and fed some food. Isa said that was the cause for the saving of your husband. He removed the mattress, and beneath it was a snake that was killed. Isa said this snake was supposed to deliver fatal venom to your husband. But that act of yours caused the death of the snake, and I couldn't see that. Only Allah knew it, or it was unpredicted. It wasn't introduced within the system, and Allah introduced it immediately. So even Isa's knowledge does not grasp the depth of what is happening in the present. This is how open Allah has left it. And Allah says in the Quran, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. Allah wipes clean whatever He wants, and He makes firm whatever He wants, and He has the mother of all books. Can you imagine how open the system is? And this is what the Quran teaches us again and again. It says to the Prophet, إِمَّا نُرِيَنَّكَ بَعْضَ مَا نَعِدُهُمْ أَوْ نَتَوَفَّيَنَّكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. O Muhammad, either we will show to you what we have promised to do to them, or we might just take you before that. The Prophet Muhammad is not being given any guarantees to. Why? Because the destiny is in the making. Things are constantly being tweaked and retweaked. Things are constantly changing. It's an open system. It's a living, dynamic system. Anything can happen. Nothing is fixed. It's so beautiful. Look at the angels saying, فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِهِ الْأَرْضِ. When Qarun came out in his might, and the keys to his treasures were held by strong, muscled people. فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِهِ الْأَرْضِ. We caused the earth to open beneath him, and for him to be swallowed up. Then the Quran says, وَمَا كَانَ لَهُ مِنْ فِئَةٍ يَنْصُرُونَهُ or تَنْصُرُونَهُ. There was not a group that could help Qarun. مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ, save Allah. They are making an exception that even at that point, when they were making Qarun be swallowed up by the earth, Allah could have overpowered destiny at that point. Imagine, this is how open Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves destiny. So when we say belief in destiny, we are talking about something very positive. We are talking about something that encourages us and empowers us to arrive at a greater level of our existence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about two things as far as khilafah is concerned on the face of this earth. One is, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لَيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He has created death and life. By the way, we are beyond death and we are beyond life. We are not people who have come, as alive and we weren't there. We were always there. Death went upon us, then life. And Allah insists on this in the Quran, that death came before, then life, then death, then life. You are nothing to do with death and life. You are beyond it all. He created death and life to see who is of the best deed amongst you. That's the first thing. And the other thing Allah says is, Amalun Salih. So the first thing, Allah wants to see who is of the best deed. And the other one is righteous deeds. So there are two levels of operations that we perform as a Khalifa of Allah on the face of this earth. If you see the trials of this life, these trials make us produce in two ways. One, we defy God and limitations. As soon as an obstacle is placed in front of us, what do we want? We want to go beyond it. Our human condition of khilafah. The godliness inside us wants to defy it, doesn't it? As soon as you say you can't do this, the son of Adam will attempt to do it. We excel, we thrive through challenges. If there were no challenges, we would not excel. And the Khalifa of Allah is always being challenged with suffering, with trials, with difficulties. And through that, the Khalifa of Allah is defying God and becoming God-like. Imagine. You put darkness, He will tear it apart and create light. You put cold, He will bring heat. You bring sickness, He will bring cure. You bring death, He will bring life. Imagine. Through all these trials, the Khalifa of Allah is excelling. Had it not been for trial, the Khalifa of Allah would be dormant. And this is the truest Khilafah of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing us grow. In this trial, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying Allah will not change the state of affairs of a people until they change their own state of affairs. So if a people find themselves condemned, then it is their own lot that they have earned. It's nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the people find themselves right there at the bottom, within their society, then that is what they have done. And if, according to us, the people who do not believe in Allah are right at the top, then it is only because Allah has honored them for their striving. And then you try and understand who is the friend of God and the enemy of God in that scheme. Of course, the friend of God is the one who gives cure on behalf of God, who gives life on behalf of God, who gives light and heat on behalf of God. The one who sits in United Nations and says there should be no more poverty. The one who sits in United Nations and says there should be no more slavery. The one who sits in United Nations and says everybody is owed their minimum human rights. They all should be educated. That is a real Khalifa of Allah as opposed to me. So this defeatist attitude is nothing to do with Islam. It's total misconception, the way we have understood it. So amalun salih is one thing, and ahsanu amala is another thing. Ahsanu amala comes through trials of this sort. When communities are tested, and we excel, and we display that level of khilafah, and Allah takes pride that I gave them no wings, they created them. I gave them no light, they created it. I gave them no cure, they created it. They are displaying me through themselves. Can you imagine? Look at us. We are so small and so insignificant that you can't even locate one son of Adam on the map of the earth if it's scaled down. You can't even locate Earth in the galaxy. You can't even locate the galaxy in the physical universe. Yet this nothing of nothing is able to understand the beginnings of the physical universe and its end. Have you ever observed something so marvelous as this little head of son of Adam, in which there is this brain in which they can understand so much? Can you imagine? Which animal has this ability to excel? Which animal has this moral conscience that we have to feed everybody? We have to give life to everybody. Which animal can do this? Which angel can do this? There is no angel in the heavens that can do what we can do. And that is why they're in prostration in front of us. And in that way, Allah has left destiny in our hands. Yours is your destiny. You destine and I will destine for you. You make a move and I'll destine it for you. So that is ahsanu amala on the one hand. And on the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about amalun salih. Now, before we get there, what is amalun salih? Ahsanu amala, according to my interpretation, is the outward motion. Amalun salih is the inward motion towards godliness. The outward motion towards godliness is by defying God, saying, La ilah, there is no God. The inward motion is illallah. So we need to explain both of this. But think about this very carefully. You know, the hadith of the Prophet, in which he says, you simultaneously have a place in heaven and in earth, in heaven and in hell. You will eventually decide which one you inherit and which one you vacate. Prophet is saying this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran. لِيُمَحِّسَ اللَّهَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَمْحَقْ الْكَافِرِينَ. So that Allah may purify the people who believe and destroy the disbelievers. And Allah says in the next verse, أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ وَلَمَّا يَعْلَمِ اللَّهَ الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا مِنْكُمْ. Do you feel you will enter paradise and Allah has yet to know the people who struggle in His way? Why is Allah saying this? That Allah has yet to know, because it's not decided. If Allah had already decided it, then Allah would be oppressive. Can you not see this? That level of salvation or damnation is left open. As destiny is in the making in the present, so is salvation and damnation. And it is totally up to us where we go. So now, let us explain this. You see, we are faced with situations in life, whether we created or created by others, but we are faced with them. How we interact with that situation determines what we become inwardly. If I receive abuse from somebody, I can either become so miserable about it and waste a day or two feeling bad about it, and then start swearing again and talking to people how bad they are, or I can just bear it. This interaction is contingent upon me. The first one makes me miserable and wasteful. The second one allows me to go beyond the situation and become bigger than the situation. On the other hand, if I can then pray for that person and say, can I see the situation from that person's perspective? Why is he so angry at me? Then in that case, I'm even a bigger person. In which case, that enemy is a friend of mine. He's allowing me to grow. This is known as Amalun Salih inside. Not namaz and roza and hajj. This is not Amalun Salih. People pray namaz and they cheat. People fast and they don't lose their sleep over the poverty of the world. That is not Amalun Salih. The way we are interacting at that deep level of ours, that is known as Amalun Salih. And that is made possible by the challenges of this world. Now obviously I'm going to repeat myself here, but it's an example that's so pertinent. We talk about that plane and that person inside that plane and the turbulence that strikes. The danger is real, but the fear that grips the person is psychologically made. That perplexity, that anxiety, that turbulence inside, beyond the turbulence outside, that panic and what people do in that panic, how they bend their principles, how they make bargains with Allah, that is all man-made. The only thing in the outside world is a real danger. Now imagine if a person can stay calm in that turbulence and say to Allah, "Oh Lord, if you have wished for me to die, then let me spend this time remembering you calmly." The first one is not even alive. It's a little baby that has woken up in a cradle and the cradle is being shaken. The other one is alive. He is living. He is interacting with the situation in a befitting manner. Now when the plane resumes its normal course, the first one will start laughing and looking at the movie and rejoicing. The second one will still be as calm as he was. Bring to mind Hussein ibn Ali. Bring to mind when the outer circle looked at him and they said, how can he have such a calm demeanor? How can he be so composed? How can he have a smile on his face amidst 30,000 swords? And those people were gripped with fear. Hussein smiled. That was his interaction with the situation. If death has been destined for me, then I shall embrace it. Did he not say, "In lam yastaqim deen Muhammad illa biqatli, faya suyufu khudini." If the deen of Muhammad cannot be saved save by my killing, O swords, await not, shred me into pieces. How wonderful is his interaction with it. When something is snatched from me at night, if my wealth collapses, if I'm bewildered, if my world collapses, I lose my confidence, it just shows, that interaction just shows where I am. But if I say, "Oh Lord, you gave it and you've taken it away, I still have you. If I have you, what have I lost?" That is the interaction that constitutes Amalun Saleh from within. So the Khalifa of Allah has two types of tests in an undetermined universe. One is that through tests and challenges, he defies God and displays godliness. And the other one is he accepts God from within and displays godliness. Qada and Qadar are supposed to make us defiant and empower us. Whenever there is a situation that is impossible to surmount, we say, Allah can overpower it. When Jalut took his band of people to meet with Talut, And when they saw this monstrous person in his army, they said, La taqata lana al-yawm ضد جالوت جنوده. We have no strength against Jalut and his army. But those people who presume they will meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those small band of people, they said, Kam min fi'atin qalilatin ghalabat fi'atan kathiratan bi'idhnillah. How many a times have a small group of people overpowered a mighty army by the consent of Allah? That is what Qadha and Qadar is supposed to instill in us, a spirit of defiance. That is what Hussein displayed, this defiance. Today Hussein has won all battles, hasn't he? Look at how it empowers us. I heard this talk. Now, I'm not anyone to understand politics, but I heard this talk from somebody said, we used to find the people of Lebanon drinking from the gutters and eating from the scraps of food that the occupying sort of Zionist forces would throw at them. He said, but then they stood. And when they stood, they stood. And they removed those forces from their lands. And now they exist in a dignified state. That was made possible through belief in Hussein ibn Ali and the belief that we can change our destiny. Salawat. Of course, I want to come to the masaib of this great person that we are commemorating tonight. But this has to be said, that this defeatist attitude is what has placed the community where it is today. All these hierarchies that we have constructed in our minds, and we feel it is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever the Muslim community is lacking in growth, they need to examine themselves. And by and large, it will be false theologies that is driving them to this state. We come to the mention of that one who is the light of Hussein's eyes. Somebody writes a poem depicting the state of Hussein as he comes back to the women. And he says, oh women, my Ali has been killed. When the women surround him, he says, O star, how short was the duration of your life. Such are the lifespans of the stars that appear at dawn. How quickly the eclipse seized you and prevented you from becoming a full moon. When I speak, you appear upon my tongue. And when I am silent, your thought and name preoccupies my soul. This is Ali. You have heard of how beautiful this young man was. But Hussein says, beyond his facial beauty was his conduct and his speech. It was like his grandfather, the Prophet of Allah. To the extent that I prayed to Allah to give me a son that would resemble my grandfather in his entirety, and Allah bestowed me with Akbar. Flawless was he in his conduct. Dignified and respectful was he in every aspect of his life. I want to say one thing. Hussein appears devastated, the body of Akbar. I will explain this again. He takes off his helmet, throws dust into the air and upon his head. And he says, "Oh child, this life has become blackened without you." I will say, Hussein, only a moment after shall you die after Akbar. And the grief is so unbearable. How shall we describe the grief of the mother of Akbar, who shall be seeing his head on the end of a spear? How does a mother witness this scene? We find this in several places, that Akbar's head would fall from the top of the spear and come beneath the hooves of the horse and camels. We find at times that his head is tied to the neck of a horse. But we find this in the descriptions, that when Zainab was allowed to mourn her Hussein, all the heads were being brought to the women. The head of Hussein was brought. Zainab took it into her arms and into her lap. The head of Abbas was brought. Kulthum took the head of Abbas. Suddenly there appeared a head. And the women of Syria cried out, "O Lord, may the mother of this child not be alive." And Layla said, "O women, I am the mother of this child." Such was the radiance of Akbar. We find that Akbar would sit at night in the wilderness with a torch just in case passerbys would be traveling. And he would bring them to home, to his house, and host them. He was the apple of Hussein's eyes. Look at how he is. He is next to his Hussein. Hussein is moving on. Hussein falls asleep on the back of his steed. Suddenly he awakens. And he says, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." Indeed, we belong to Allah, and to Him do we return. Akbar said, "O father, indeed, we return to Allah. But what causes you to pronounce the kalimatul istirja at this point?" He said, "O child, as I slept, there was a call, O caravan, advance towards your death, for indeed death awaits your coming." He said, "O father, are we not on the truth?" "Indeed, O child." "Then what difference does it make if we hasten to death or death hastens to us?" Such is Akbar, and such is the resolve of Akbar. We hear from the Zakirin that one of Imam Hussein's daughters, who had married the son of Imam Hassan, was still in Medina. And when everybody left, he was the closest to her. And she said, "Akbar, promise me that you will come back." And it was this grief that Akbar carried in his chest until his chest was torn apart. It is the night of Ashura. Akbar and Abbas are conversing. Abbas says to Akbar, "O child, you are my brother's light. You are the light of his eyes. Hasten not to death tomorrow. I fear, if you were to die, my brother shall lose his sight." Akbar says, "Oh uncle, you are the strength of my father. If you go and die, my father shall lose his resolve to live. Oh uncle, hasten not to death before me." It is the dawn of the day of Ashura. The enemy's mountain attack. Abbas, Akbar, go to them. Ask them to allow us respite to offer our prayers. Respite is given. "Akbar, allow me to hear the voice of your grandfather. Recite your final adhan." Akbar ascends upon a hill and calls out, "Allahu Akbar." As he pronounces Allahu Akbar, awe prevails upon the camp of Hussein, as if Karbala begins to tremble. It contains itself until he cries out, "I bear witness, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." We hear from the Dhakirin, Sughra awakens abruptly and cries out, "O Lord, may no grief befall my Akbar." The enemies are bewildered. Where does this voice emanate from? Women's hearts are breaking. This is the last time they hear the adhan of Akbar. The battle commences. Akbar, with his father and his uncle, brings back the bodies of the helpers. When the helpers of Hussein have all died, none remain but the brothers and the sons and the nephews of Hussein. Hussein looks at his son. He says, "Akbar, I would like you to fight on your old father's behalf. in single combat. Indeed, O father, indeed. But Akbar, go and seek permission of your mothers. Do not go without their consent. When Akbar appears within the tents, we see the women surrounding him, each one of them kissing him and embracing him, looking at him as if it is the final time they will behold him. Suddenly Akbar's mother appears, and the cries fill the heavens. Oh mother, I do not know how you look at a son who is about to taste death. Mother, let me be. Oh child, do you know what you ask of your mother? His mother is controlled by other women. We are told by our Zakirin that Akbar attempts to come out of the tent several times. But each time Akbar attempts to come out, a woman grabs him and says, "Oh Akbar, allow me to behold you one last time." Until Zainab comes and embraces her. "Akbar, oh child, I will give everything up for you. But my brother's life is at stake, oh child. What am I to do, oh child? I have raised you like my own, and by Allah, I will give every one of my own for my brother." Akbar finally emerges. Hamid ibn Muslim looks from afar. He says, "Before this time, I had not heard the cries of Hussein." Hussein looks at Akbar from head to feet and cries out aloud, as if a mother is crying at the janazah of her son. He says, "Oh child, go." When Akbar begins to go, Hussein points two of his fingers towards the skies. He says, "Allahumma ashhad ala haula'il qawm." Oh Allah, bear witness upon these people. For now I send to them that son of mine that most resembles your messenger in his features, in his speech, in his conduct. Akbar is advancing. He hears something. He looks back. He sees his father walking behind him and falling and standing, with his hands upon his chest. "Oh father, have you not bid me farewell?" "Indeed, O child, I have." "Then, O father, what is this that I see?" Akbar, had you a son like Akbar, you would not have asked this question. Akbar, go. Akbar goes. In single combat, nobody can overcome him. They surround him. He fights them. He kills great many of them. But Hussein is but a father. Hussein's heart is filled with anguish. He runs within the tent, grabs the hand of Layla, says, "O mother of Akbar, come with me. Stand under the open skies. As I plead to Allah, say Ameen." Hussein says, "O Lord of Yaqub and Yusuf, as you caused your Yusuf to return to his Yaqub, cause my Akbar to come back to me." Layla said, "Ameen." As she said, "Ameen," Akbar came back. He said, "Oh father, the thirst kills me. The weight of the coat of mail has taken the strength out of my body. Oh father, if only there was a drop of water, I would have combated your enemies." Hussein hears this for the first time from his youthful child, and Hussein is unable to fulfill his wish. Hussein looks at him, says, "Oh child, give me your tongue in my mouth. Maybe you will find some moisture." Akbar places his tongue in the mouth of Hussein. He trembles and he says, "Oh father, you are thirstier than I." Akbar, take off your coat of mail, put down your armor, and go in the way of Allah. Akbar, resolved to die, enters within the battlefield. He fights. Munkad bin Murrah says to a companion, Allah, I shall cause such a wound upon the chest of this youth that his father will die with it. Let him be. I said, let those surrounding him kill him. By God, if the sins of the world were to befall me, I shall wound his chest. He hides behind the tree. It is said, an arrow is released and penetrates within the neck of Akbar. He begins to bleed profusely. Unable to control himself, he is struck upon his head. As he is struck upon his head, he wraps his arms around the neck of the horse and places his head on the mane of the horse. And the horse is carrying him within the enemies. As they hack him, he calls not unto his father until Murrah comes. As Akbar's grip loosens, Murrah embeds his spear within the chest of Akbar to lift him. The spear breaks. Akbar descends upon the plains of Karbala. Ya abata, alayka minni salam. O father, peace be with you from your child. Wa Aliya, Hussein cries out, call on to me, O child. For not who struggles to come. He sees a woman embracing Ali, crying out, oh Ali, oh my child. Hussein looks closely, it is Zainab. He carries her back to the tents. He comes back. He sits at the feet of Akbar as Akbar begins to rub his heels. He removes his helmet and throws dust upon his head and says, oh child, how audacious are the people who have killed you. Oh child, after you, this world has become a blackened place for me. Then he places his face upon the wounds of Akbar. As Akbar is breathing his last, he says, oh father, here is my grandfather, quenching my thirst from the chalice of Kawthar, and saying, say to your father, Ya Hussein, al-ajal, al-ajal. Hussein says, oh Akbar, why do you hold your chest? Is it the grief of your sugra? Oh father, I beseech you, do not ask me to remove my hands. Oh Akbar, for the sake of Allah, remove your hands. And he witnesses the broken end of a spear. He says, oh grandfather Ibrahim, see how Hussein gives his Ismail in the way of Allah. Hussein अकबर को ले आते हैं खेमे की तरफ. हमीद इब्न मुस्लिम कहते हैं, सकीना आई, कहा ए बाबा मेरे भाई की कोई खबर है? आपके भाई कत्ल कर दिए गए. सकीना बच्ची रोने लगी. हुसैन ने कहा ए सकीना सब्र करो. सकीना ने कहा किस तरह से सब्र करूं ए बाबा जिसका भाई चला गया. इतने में हमीद बिन मुस्लिम कहते हैं कि एक औरत आई उलझी हुई, कहा आका मेरा बच्चा मुझे वापस कर दो. मैंने पूछा कौन है ये? कहा ये है लैला. इतने में ज़ैनब आई और अकबर के लाशे पर गिरी और बयान करने लगी, वाह अलिया वाह अकबरा मातुम हुसैन.